Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today. This is Tuesday, April 8th, and today's lesson is entitled A Toddling Son. The memory verse again is found in Hosea chapter 12, verse 6, which reads, "But you must return to your God, maintain love and justice, and wait for your God always." The third metaphor that we're going to be looking at today is that of comparing the relationship between God and Israel to that of a father and a son. This comparison is made in Hosea chapter 11, verse 1 and 3. And it reads, "When Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son. I taught Ephraim to walk, taking them by their arm, but they did not know that I healed them." The deepest sense of responsibility that a person can have on this earth is that of a parent towards a child. Because for a child, the parent is everything: guardian, provider, protector, teacher from the youngest age. And it is very important for the parent to be two things for that child in order to earn their respect. Is to be fair, and the parent needs to be able to discipline. Now, as a child, it's difficult for us to sometimes appreciate why our parents do the things that they do and make the rules that they make up. Can cause us to be frustrated and resentful. But I'm at the age where I have the opportunity to be both child and parent. And I had an interesting paradigm shift, which many of us have, in that I now understand why my parents did what they did. Now I understand why my parents had to give me rules, and the reason why they had to discipline me at times. And the reason why I understand is because I feel now the same way they felt towards me, now towards my son. And I realize that these rules are not made just because I'm in charge, but because I have the interest of my child in mind. And I want them to be happy and have character and integrity when they grow up. In these texts, we find that God is presenting himself as a father, leading Israel, Ephraim, by the hand, teaching them how to walk. Now, all of us as parents remember the moment, and we celebrate when our child finally learns how to walk, because it's a process. And it's interesting that God describes himself in the same process with Israel, because we know that the first step is just for them to learn how to raise their heads and lift it up, because they can't even do that when a baby is born. And then for them to be able to sustain the weight of their bodies on their feet, to just be able to stand. And then for them to just to be able to take one step, and then ultimately multiple steps on their own. And this is the same process that God needs to take, because he's teaching us how to walk the walk of faith. And he knows that it's a process. He needs to lift our eyes towards him, and he needs to help us every step of the way. But he understands, as any parent does, that there will be falls. But when we fall, just like any parent sees their child fall, what he's preoccupied with is that we don't hurt ourselves. Because that, is a risk depending on where your child is learning how to walk. And if you do fall, like any good parent, God wishes to lift you up and put you back on the path to walking that walk of faith. A parent does not get frustrated or humiliated with their child when they stumble and fall. They just want to get them back up and try again, because the child is normally the one that'll get frustrated and quit sooner than the parent would want to. So this is important when we relate to God and approach him, and sometimes we may not understand what he wants from our lives or why he's asking us to do certain things. We must know that his eye is keen on us to teach us to walk a godly walk and live a Christ-like life. There are a couple of verses that I would like for us to look at that describe the necessity for parents to discipline and the necessity for God to discipline his people. And they are the following. Deuteronomy 8:5. Know then in your heart that as a man disciplines his son, so the Lord your God disciplines you. Proverbs 13:24. Whoever spares the rod hates their child, but the one who loves their children is careful to discipline them. Hebrews 12:6. Because the Lord disciplines the one he loves and chastens everyone he accepts as his son. Revelation 3:9. Those whom I love I rebuke and discipline. So be earnest and repent. God, like any good father, wishes to discipline their children in order for them to mold into the people that they will ultimately become. Because we know that no child is born knowing everything. Every baby is born selfish, crying to help me, give me, give me. And God needs to be able to do just like us as parents, teach our children right from wrong. And sometimes we need to discipline them in order for them to understand the gravity of their mistakes. I remember when my child was younger, I had to lay down the law. And every time I did, it was always such a burden to me because I didn't enjoy it. I made it a point to never discipline my child when I was angry because that was not the motivation behind the discipline. I wanted him to know that what I was doing was because I needed him to understand that what he did was not acceptable under any conditions. And it was always the last resort, and he always understood. We sat down and talked, and he knew that it bothered me more to have to discipline him myself. And I remember when my mom used to give me a whooping, that it would not hurt too much, but no one likes to, you know, be disciplined. But I noticed that when I went to the living room, that my mom would be weeping because she had to discipline me. And that got me to thinking, and I realize it now, that disciplining is more difficult for the parent than it is for the child. And so much more must be true with God up in heaven. How much more he would just like for us to continue our walk with no stumbling and no falls. But as any child does, we all have our moments. As we go out throughout our day today, I would like for us to think about God as we think about our children. We're going to have to prepare their lunches today, prepare their baths, their food. We'll have to monitor their viewing on television. You know, we don't want their minds to be influenced in negative ways. And all these things that you have to help your child to get through today. Think about what God needs to do for you to get you through this day. Sometimes we don't understand why God asks us to do certain things, but he has his reasons. I would like to end with the quote from Ellen White and then the question that the lesson leaves us with. It's found in Education, page 151. All who in this world render true service to God or man receive a preparatory training in the school of sorrow. The weightier the trust and the higher the service, the closer is the test and the more severe the discipline. And then the lesson has a good question, which many of us really is what the whole confusion is in our relationship with the Lord. And it reads, for many of us, the issue is not about trusting God's discipline. Rather, the struggle is knowing how to interpret the trials that comes our way. How do we know if what we are going through is indeed God teaching us in the school of sorrow, or if it is something else? Bring your answer to class on Sabbath. How do we know if God is disciplining us, or if we're just going through a trial that will test our character? At the end of the day, we can always fall back to what we as children fall back to. Our parents love us, and they wouldn't let us go through anything that wouldn't be for our best interest. And Romans tells us all things work for the good for those that love God. I thank you all for joining us today. Give your children an embrace. If you don't have children, go hug your parents because they are supposed to be a reminder to you how much you mean to God. But God bless you. Thanks for joining us. Have a wonderful today, and I will see you tomorrow.